Each year, Microsoft Research hosts hundreds of influential speakers from around the world, including leading scientists, renowned experts in technology, book authors, and leading academics, and makes videos of these lectures freely available.
Thanks for coming. My name is Amy Draves, and I'm pleased to welcome Liz Wiseman to the Microsoft Research Visiting Speaker Series. She will be discussing her book, Rookie Smarts. Is it possible, after decades of experience, to recapture the enthusiasm, curiosity, and fearlessness required to take on new challenges? Liz explains how to cultivate the rookie mindset and how to keep your contribution vital and competitive. Liz teaches leadership to executives around the world. She is president of the Wiseman Group and has been named one of the top 10 leadership thinkers in the world. She is also the author of Multipliers and the Multiplier Effect. Please join me in giving her a very warm welcome.
Good afternoon, and thank you for joining me in this conversation today, whether you're here in person or watching on the video stream. I want to start our conversation today with this idea that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. It's an idea that was at the very core of my career. I joined Oracle back in 1988. I'm right out of business school. I'm thrown into my first job, which was to teach programming to all the programmers that Oracle was hiring. The big challenge of that job is that I actually didn't know a whole lot about programming, but ended up learning really, really fast. About a year into my time at Oracle, the company was growing, scaling very fast. They said, Liz, we need someone to manage training for the company. That needs to be you. Welcome to management. And Larry Ellison wants a university. So go build for us Oracle University. And I knew absolutely nothing about running a university, building a university. But there's one thing I did know. I was absolutely sure, because I think my primary qualification for building a university is that I had attended some universities. And the one thing I knew is that any respectable university needed to have a crest, and a t-shirt to go with that crest, a crest on a t-shirt. And that crest needed some sort of logo, a mantra, if you will, and it needed to be in Latin. So I gathered my little team of would-be university developers, and after about 10 minutes of deliberation on this very weighty matter, we chose knowledge is power for Oracle's mantra. And it sounded, it sounded just tough. It sounded aggressive. It sounded very serious, almost intimidating. And I realized that that needed to be in Latin, and knowing absolutely no Latin myself, and having a dearth of colleagues around me who could translate that into Latin, I did the only logical thing. This is back in probably, 89, is I phoned up Stanford University. Stanford was just a couple miles down the road, and I'm like, surely there are people at Stanford University who know Latin. So I asked to be connected. I called the main switchboard, asked to be connected with the classics department, and then got a hold of someone there and said, could you connect me to a professor of Latin? And they did. And I told him that we were starting this university and I needed knowledge is power translated into Latin. I asked if he wouldn't mind if he would just do that for me, as if he had nothing better to do in his day. And he was sort of delighted by my very naive but sincere request. And he translated knowledge is power to sapere est valeri. And I asked him if he would spell that for me very slowly, very carefully, and he did. And I wrote it down, and then my next phone call was to Oracle's t-shirt vendor. I said, could you give me like a nice collegiate logo, knowledge is power, sapere est valeri, slap that on a t-shirt, and our university operation was born. And it's how I thought about information and knowledge and intelligence for many years. Knowledge is power. But I left Oracle after 17 years there, after realizing for the first time, in my entire career, I had a job that I was qualified for. See, I was probably 40 before I had a job that I actually had the proper qualifications for. And I realized I knew how to do my job. And it was kind of a sinking feeling, a terrible feeling. And as I left Oracle in search of something that I didn't know how to do, I started to wonder, when does what we know become a liability? When does what we know get in the way of what we don't know and perhaps need to learn? And this is really the question I want us to explore for, maybe, the next 30 or 40 minutes is it possible that we actually find more power in not knowing, in inquiry, in discovery? And is it possible that we do our very best work not when we're knowledgeable and qualified and perhaps even at the top of our game, but we do our very best work when we don't fully know what we're doing? And I want you to consider with me that possibly we do our best work when we're rookies, and that maybe the rookies in our organization and the rookie inside of each one of us is far more valuable than we have thought about. I want to start our conversation by asking you to consider one of your rookie experiments. And I'm going to ask you to teleport yourself and to do this Star Trek style. I think we all who watched the show back in the 70s, kind of had this fantasy about that teleporter that could take us sort of in place and maybe even time. And I want you to go back in place and time. If you're here with me in this room, I'm going to kind of stare you down till you do it. If you're on the video stream, I'm going to ask you to join me in this and to go back in place and time when you were a rookie. And what I mean by that is when you were doing something important and hard, and you're doing it for the very first time. You might take yourself back, like in my case, I might go back to when I was, just 24 and a half years old, a year out of business school, when I was asked to go build a university for a now large growing company. Some of you, if I were a founder here at Microsoft, I might take myself back to 1975. Seeing the promise of, can we build a programming language, for this new micro computer? And can we do it when we don't even have an interpreter and we've signed up to go and demo this language, but yet we don't have one of the systems and we don't have the interpreter and we've got 8 weeks to go? Kind of a rookie assignment. Signed up for something hard. Some of you may take yourself back maybe 2 months ago. You're a professional with years of experience, years of mastery, expertise in one area, but asked to do something very much out of your comfort zone, out of your area of expertise, where you find yourself being a rookie again. So I'm going to ask you to go back and find that. I've got a few questions that I would love to get your guys on. Interesting, they're all number one. Somehow in the translation, they all kind of turn to number one. Here are a few questions I would ask you to consider. Number one, what could you see that other people couldn't? Number one, who did you seek out for guidance? What did you do to prove yourself quickly? How did you get feedback to stay on track? And what did you do to recover from the inevitable mistakes that we make when we're kind of out there in this rookie zone? Now, I'd invite you to, if you've got paper nearby or you've got some sort of electronic device, to maybe take a note or two. I'm going to share one such rookie story, but I'd love for you to be answering any of these questions. If you are watching on the live stream, I'd invite you to chat in your observations to any of those questions. And I should say there's going to be a little bit of a quiz after this teleport yourself exercise, because I want to know how you operated when you were in this new space. Okay? So give it some think, maybe take a couple notes, and let me share one such example. This is Stephanie DeMarco. She graduated from UC Berkeley in 1979. She took a job, she had a business degree. She took a job in the financial services industry working for a small, medium-sized trading company where her job was to keep track of the company's trades. And as she started keeping track of these trades, she found it to involve a lot of manual work, a lot of tedious work. She goes to the management team of this company and says, we need to automate this. This is the beginning of enterprise computing. And with that recommendation, she actually found herself sort of smack dab in the middle of the computer wars. Back at the time, enterprise information systems were built on, the big iron, the industry standard at the time. Many of you, were there in the industry then. Big deck, mini computers, the size of a delivery truck, housed in a data center, cooled by air conditioning with a price tag of $30,000. It was a pretty hefty price tag for a pretty small firm, but with no other alternatives, they set out doing this. Now, meanwhile, IBM has introduced the first PC. Not particularly powerful, with the price tag of, I think, about $1,500. A lot of people considered it a toy at the time. Then within maybe a release cycle or two, with a $5,000 price tag, it's now got the computing power of the DEC mini computer. And Stephanie sees this and sees this kind of price performance value proposition. She says, well, why don't we build these information systems on a PC? And the industry experts said to her, you're crazy. You're nuts. No one would build, a high performance production information system that tracks financial trades on a PC. It's a ridiculous idea. But to Stephanie, it wasn't ridiculous. It seemed entirely possible. In fact, it seemed inevitable to her. She left that firm, found a partner, started a software company called Advent Software with this idea of building these high-performance enterprise information management systems on the PC. Well, soon they've got a product that works, and then they've got a customer, and soon Stephanie is schlepping through the streets of Manhattan calling on financial services firms, dragging her PC, which was then, required probably a moving dolly at the time, winning the business customer by customer. She recalled the naysayers still didn't really believe it was possible, despite the fact that they were doing it. And she recalled one particular trade show where a competitor referred to Advent as that software company from San Francisco using baby computers and run by a little girl. Years later, she led the company through a public offering, and now the company is valued at $1.5 billion in market capitalization, and now sells their systems into 100 different countries, managing trillions of dollars of financial assets. An absolute rookie in the technology space who could see something that everyone else missed. And perhaps the fact that she was underqualified caused her to work harder to prove herself and to build the system not in one fell swoop, but layer by layer, proving it incrementally, a customer at a time. One such rookie move, rookie experience. Have you been wandering back to your rookie experience? Doing something important and hard for the very first time. Okay, we've got one online. Amy, shout it out. And this is going to give everyone here a chance to start to come up with how did I work when I was in this rookie zone. Amy, what do we have online?
So Ram Kumar says he was a rookie at Oracle circa 1995 and built Oracle 8 LOB, line of business features. Cherish this fondly as the most exciting, rewarding time of my career.
The most exciting, rewarding time of his career. Ram Kumar, and I was there at Oracle at the time that he was building that line of business. When you think back on one of your, we'll call it rookie moves, how did you work? And I just want you to shout it out for me. We're not going to raise hands or be in any way polite on this. Just, what do we do when we're new to something important, hard? We're scared. We ask a ton of questions. We operate in inquiry mode rather than answer mode. What else do we do in this new rookie space? We're fearless because often we don't know enough to be afraid. But yet we have this sense of I'm doing something hard and maybe all eyeballs are on me. So it's this sort of paranoid, anxious boldness.
Idealistic.
We're idealistic because anything seems possible. Why?
Because you didn't have to fail.
Yeah, we haven't failed yet. We have yet to encounter failure, so it just looks all like upside. What else? What do you notice? How do you operate in this rookie space?
Immersion.
Immersion.
It's like it's all encompassing.
It's all encompassing. It pulls us in, and we are so fully immersed. We don't tend to dabble, do we, in this space? It's almost like the way that we learn a language. Total immersion. Yes?
Oh, it's a trial and error.
It's a trial and error process. We tend to experiment. And sometimes we mistakenly think that in this space we make these big, bold moves, and it's not what we found at all. What kind of moves do we make when we're rookies?
Cautious.
Cautious. We found that they're incredibly cautious, and they take these small baby steps. They work in what we would call agile, lean ways. And why in these little baby steps? Partially because we don't know any better. We don't know how to make any big, bold moves at that point. But we're also scared. And so what do? Our antenna is up looking for feedback. Am I doing it right? Am I doing it right? Is it close? Is this fit for use? How else do we tend to operate in this rookie space? Amy, anything that came in on the live stream?
A bunch. We pay attention more, don't realize what's not possible. We're fearless. We don't hold anything back. We're a sponge for info. And we're continuing.
We're a sponge for info. Read me that second one again.
We don't hold anything back. We pay attention more.
We pay attention. We find, although we think that when someone's a rookie, new to something, that they're kind of these bumbling, clueless clods, right? We actually find that people are extraordinarily alert. Kind of operating with, from the data in my research, like 2.5 times the level of alertness and mindfulness and deliberateness, because it's this intense, scary experience. Any other observations on what it's like when we're rookies?
Like kids,
We're like kids. We're absolutely like kids. We operate with this kind of playful sense of wonder. It's why so many people, when they think back on their rookie experiences, they reflect what, was it Ram Kumar said in his time at Oracle? It was the most exhilarating time of my career. I'm going to share with you what we found, my research team and I found studying how people work when they're inexperienced. But I think the offer that I want to make to you is that it's not too late to be a rookie. That rookie experiences aren't limited to those we have early in our career. Me at 24, your founders in 1975, that we can have these kind of experiences throughout our career. And when organizations give permission for their most experienced professionals, leaders, and executives at the top of our organizations to maintain their rookie state, it creates a kind of environment where innovation tends to flourish. An environment where people do their best, and also an environment where people are at their most joyful and satisfied. Let me share a little bit of what I found. Here's the essence of the research that we did. I looked at about 400 different work scenarios. So those scenarios could have been developed a user guide, debugged a program, developed a training course. I think that one of the most complicated pieces of work that we analyzed was to build out a corporate campus. And we looked at how experienced people do that work and how inexperienced people did that work. And we asked managers to talk to us about how people operated, how they thought about the work, and how they performed. And here's what we found. We found first and foremost that experience, while it brings a set of virtues, like fill in the blank with me. What does experience bring? It brings confidence, absolutely. It brings efficiency. Yeah, we know the path. It brings reliability. Quality goes up. We amass more data points, and with more data points, it actually brings us greater powers of intuition. Our intuition goes up because our intuition is our mind sort of subconsciously processing a lot of data points that we've experienced. But experience can bring a number of troubling blind spots. As I was doing the research, I thought this was so interesting. As your founder and CTO and I said, success is a lousy teacher. It seduces smart people into thinking they can't lose. That while experience brings all of those qualities, it creates some troubling blind spots. What happens when we know the pattern? What happens when we recognize a pattern?
You see that pattern all over the place.
We see the pattern all over it. Like, oh, it's almost like the way when you discover a new word and then suddenly you see that word everywhere. We start to recognize that pattern and we can recognize it really quick. And when we get in that state, sometimes you only need 2.5 data points before you can draw a trend line or you can recognize that pattern. Is there someone here who can read this for us? Someone with a big, loud voice that they can hear you on the live stream. I know there's someone with a big, loud voice who can read. Okay, who are you?
I'll read it.
Thank you.
It doesn't matter what order the letters in a word appear. The only important thing is that the first and last letter are in the right place. The rest can be a total mess, and you can still read without problem.
Well done. And how about this one?
Similarly, your mind is reading this automatically without even thinking about it.
Thank you. What happens when we know? Yeah, that's kind of freaky, isn't it? Yeah. Props to Natalie Waltover for that research. What happens when we recognize the pattern? We assume a lot. We replace a lot. We replace aberrant data points with what ought to be there. As my teenage son says, oh, that's when, like, Mom, that's when you start making stuff up. You're like, yeah, but I've seen this before. And of course, you're the one who did this because you did it 2 times before. Mom, you're making stuff up again. Okay, but you've given me a trend line. Sometimes we stop seeing things that are there. We miss them. We can very easily stop seeing new possibilities. We can stop seeking input. We can stop seeking feedback. And with experience, inevitably comes bad experience, right? Professional scar tissue. And some of it, you think about the scars that you have on your body. There's obviously some physiological reason why we get scars, but I think there's sort of a mental reason why we get scars. They're reminders. Like, don't do that again. That was painful. I have a couple big scars on my knee that remind me, do not race your husband down Wildcat at Alta. Like, that ended really, really badly for you. Emergency surgery, months of rehabilitation to be able to walk again, ski again. Don't go down that path again. But what does it look like when we get professional scar tissue? Where we've walked down a path and it didn't work. Perhaps it went really badly. And the walls start coming up, the hands stop coming up. We also found that in this research, now I could share with you tons of data, but I think what might be more helpful is just what we found in this research is that ignorance, and I don't at all mean stupidity, I mean a lack of knowledge, sort of an intelligent ignorance can actually prompt a top performance. And let me kind of just walk with me in sort of how we tend to think and work when we are trying to climb up a pretty steep learning curve versus how we tend to think and work when we're competent and confident and experienced. It begins sort of at the beginning of this S-curve, this learning curve is the state of ignorance. Well, this is where truly ignorance is bliss. We don't know a whole lot, so we readily embark because we're saying to ourselves, how hard can that be, right? It can't be hard. And, we're seeing this gentle slope. And we think, that looks like fun. I'm going to learn something new. And then we start to find our very first answers once we move up this curve. And we head up in what I call backpacker mode. Unencumbered, not encumbered by assumptions, by data, by a reputation, by the resources that or accolades that we tend to amass when we have experience. So unencumbered, we embark, and we start to find our first answer once we move into this state of awareness. And we realize, actually, this is really hard. It's really hard. And we see this slope starting to increase. But more than that, we look at where we are versus where we need to be versus where our peer group is, and we start to panic. And what are we saying to ourselves in this moment, in this kind of phase of the learning curve? And feel free to give it to me unfiltered.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, this is where we start That was unfiltered, thank you. It's where we start to swear, which I think is one of the reasons why we call this an S-curve, because it is what we're thinking in this moment. What have I done? And, we would go back if we could sometimes, but quite often they've backfilled our jobs, or they have announced that we're doing this, we've announced the project. And so we kick into this kind of anxious desperation stage. This is where the desperation, we start to ask questions like, what do I need to know? And is there someone here who can guide me? And this is where I think the most powerful form of learning transpires. Because we don't learn because we're sent to a course. We don't learn because we come and attend an author's lecture. We don't learn because someone put a competency model in front of us. When do we learn? Yeah, we learn when we need to, and when we learn when it's too painful not to learn. For how many years have I been trying to learn to speak Spanish? And I make these kind of, honest attempts to learn. We schedule a vacation in Central America. We go with our family. I try out my Spanish, and what happens?
They answer you in English.
They answer me in English. My teenage daughter, prone to sarcasm, she said, Mom, have you noticed that when you speak Spanish that they always speak back to you in English? I'm like, yeah, I have noticed that. She goes, I think I know why. I'm like, oh, do tell. She says, well, because you're not very good. That's why they do that. I'm like, okay, thank you for that. Yeah, and so given the option of continuing that conversation in English or my feeble Spanish, which do I choose? I end up going with the English, and I never learn. But I guarantee you, I will learn to speak Spanish when I am airdropped into a Spanish-speaking country without a translator, without an internet connection, without someone who's willing and generous to speak back to me in English. Hungry and cold, I will learn to speak Spanish, right? And this is where the most powerful form of learning, and it is what propels us up this steep side of the learning curve. We operate in what I call hunter-gatherer mode. Because without expertise of our own, we turn outward and we start seeking it from the people around us. We start asking really good questions. We found in this research that inexperienced people, rookies, bring in 5 times the level of expertise to bear on a problem than an experienced person does. Because they get this network effect of not knowing. In absence of knowing, they go out and they ask a bunch of people and they mobilize that expertise, often bringing in more diverse expertise, more current expertise, and then they integrate it and bring it back to bear. We also operate in what I call firewalker mode because we are cautious, but we found that in our rookie state, we move really, really fast. The way that someone would walk the hot coals. Cautious because what they're doing is dangerous, but moving really fast across those so they don't get burned. It's why we operate in these lean, agile cycles. And we do it naturally, not because the company has a big initiative to do this. We do it because we don't know another way to do it in our rookie state. And then we move into what I call pioneer mode. This is that, hungry, scrappy, relentless way of working. We tend to improvise. We get resourceful, trying to get ourselves up and over that learning curve. We find that when people in this rookie state contribute, they often contribute big. And we found that, broadly across a lot of different industries, people with experience tend to outperform people without experience. But it's by a relatively small margin. In the knowledge industries, we find that people without experience, in this study of 400 pieces of work, they outperform people with experience, particularly when the work is innovative in nature and when it comes to speed. They're more innovative and they're faster. But then there's the dangerous part of the S-curve, the part that we don't talk about a lot. What happens when we've gotten the job done, we've become experienced, now we're the go-to person. And if we're not careful, we become comfortable. Again, relying on our experience and mastery. Often settling in, using the resources that we already have, reusing tools rather than creating new tools and new technology, perhaps protecting the resources that we've built, the team that we've built, protecting our reputation. Sometimes kind of moving consistently, running a marathon while the rookies are sprinting around us. Here's a question that I would ask you to pause and consider with me. How do we get trapped in our experience? And I would contend that the experience trap isn't this snare kind of trap. It doesn't have these spring-loaded jaws that trap us in our experience. It's more like the trap, the proverbial monkey trap. How do you trap a monkey? People are like, we have no experience with this. It is said, I personally I do not have experience having actually trapped a monkey, but they say you can trap a monkey with a basket or a cage with a small opening, just big enough for the monkey to put his hand in and grab the banana, but not large enough for that banana to come back out. And unwilling to let go of this prize, the monkey is just trapped in place. And they just stay there. In what ways do we get trapped by our experience?
Pressure to perform.
Pressure to perform. To maintain a top performance. To maintain a top performance, I don't really want to venture out. It's kind of like you might recall some of your university days where, well, if I take that course that's really quite off of my strength, I might jeopardize my GPA, my performance, my chance of grad school, my chance of jobs at Microsoft, et cetera, et cetera. How else do we get trapped by our experience? And feel free to chat these in. Amy will see your response and shout it out to us.
Not ready to change with the environment.
Not changing with the environment. Yeah, maybe we're trapped in our own strength. And we wake up one day and realize we don't know as much as we used to know. When I was doing this research, I did, kind of an analysis of what's going on in the environment. Obviously, we all feel it. More data, accessible by more people. The answers are now out there and available to everyone. Technology that you all produce is causing our business cycles to spin a lot faster, which causes our innovation cycles to spin a lot faster, which means the knowledge that we gain doesn't stay with us for very long, does it? It evaporates a lot more quickly. I put a few data points together and calculated that if you work in STEM, science, technology, engineering, math, if you work in technology and sciences, about 15%, 15% of what you know today will be relevant in 5 years. How else do we get trapped by our experience?
Being on that learning curve is stressful. And so I think oftentimes I've tried to seek out enough knowledge to be competent, and I forget about contributing. And you're in that constant cycle of not contributing until you're competent. And letting go of that, saying contribute at whatever point, and somehow rephrasing that being on that steep learning curve is stressful. It's just what it is, and don't worry about not knowing a lot.
Yeah, sometimes we don't want to be in this place of not knowing, and so we wait to contribute until we're competent. Or perhaps management is so used to having to train up, to induct new employees at an assumptions build that you're not really expected to contribute much in your first 6 months or in your first X number of months. We did some work at eBay, and they had a pretty significant initiative to bring a lot of new blood into the organization, particularly recent college graduates. And one of the first things they did before bringing in this new crew was reoriented the thinking of the managers. And they reoriented the thinking of the managers to let these people contribute immediately. In fact, what we want you to do is we don't really want you to train them. We want you to put them to work right away. So they did a lot of work to have managers send the message, which is don't wait till you're skilled, till you're knowledgeable, till you know what you're doing. Contribute immediately. They measured apples to apples and year-over-year contribution on ideas to patents and ideas that actually led to patents. And they saw a 25% jump year over year because people were told, don't wait to contribute. Just start doing it right away. It's breaking some of these assumptions. I know for myself, some of the things that get in my way, productivity. Hey, I can learn anything. I can do anything new as long as it doesn't jeopardize my productivity. I was one of these people who, when Windows came out, I'm like, where's my command line? Yeah, I'm like, yeah, this is a cute piece of software. I get it. It's prettier. But I am fast. Give me a command line, C, colon, copy, started. Like, I know how to do that. I fly with that. And this cute thing is slowing me down. How many new tools or ideas do we reject because they slow us down initially? Or maybe we're so busy playing to our strengths, trying to be a go-to guy, that we realize that our search engines are the real go-to guys. Or maybe we start playing it safe. Maybe we're in leadership roles and we convince ourselves that the most important role a leader can play is to protect the lead, that maybe their product team is established, or to protect your leadership role. We start playing it safe. Mark Parker, Nike's CEO and president, said, there's no more dangerous position than playing it safe. So you might be thinking about, what are the things that have us trapped in our experience? Is experience itself a liability? Not necessarily. It's the hubris that tends to accompany experience that tends to be the liability. Yes?
I was just reminded of your earlier statement of knowledge is power. I think if you have that mindset, then you want to hoard it, and you think very carefully what you share with whom. And if that's your mental model, then I think very quickly you find yourself in this experience trap, because by default, you won't be learning as quickly as people.
That's right. If you believe knowledge is power, you start to hoard it. And again, you might build your career around being the go-to guy, and you find over time that there's a lot of less traffic coming by your desk, isn't there? As people are now liberated to get answers that are far more readily available. How do I redefine that? Again, I began my career with this kind of assumption that knowledge is power. It sounded good. It sounded tough. And I actually think it's a liability. I think there's more power in not knowing, in inquiry. I want to leave some time for questions. As I studied people in their rookie mode, I found this very interesting breed of professionals. Successful professionals, people with years of experience, people who were masterful at what they did. Photographers like Annie Leibovitz, innovators like Elon Musk, who despite their success maintain this ability, to keep their, what I call rookie smarts, their rookie mind. And it's not that they stay perpetually in this naive, clueless state, because, you think about that, that's a little unbecoming. But it's that they have this ability to toggle between states, knowing when to use their hard-won experience and when in a different setting to play the role of the rookie, to approach their work as if they hadn't done it. And here's what I find very common across these kinds of professionals. They tend to be curious. They have a humility about them, and it's not a low sense of self, is it? It's this ability to learn from everyone around them. It's almost like a 360-degree learning. They tend to be playful. Like was said by the gentleman here, work just is play for them. And they tend to operate with very high levels of deliberateness, mindful of what they're doing, and mindful about how they maintain their rookie smarts, their ability to think with this youthful, vibrant way of working. Let me share a couple ways that we see people maintain this. This is Bob Hurley. He's the founder of Hurley International, surfwear, skatewear. He built this company with a series of what he calls rookie moves. He said, at every junction in building this company, I didn't know what I was doing, and it turned out to be an advantage. I was more interested in how he maintained this way of thinking. And he said, I have good days where, I'm constantly purging out mediocrity, I'm renewing the company, I'm having fun, and I have my rough days. And on his rough days, he remembers an encounter he had with a surfer back in 1979. It was a surfer named Wayne Bartholomew. He was the reigning world champion surfer at the time. Bob was surfing on Huntington Beach, and he was surfing kind of on the prime waves where all the elite professional surfers surf. He's out there with this group of surfers, Hurley is. He loses his board. The board goes under Huntington Beach Pier, and he kind of swims chasing his board. Now, the other side of the pier in these lesser waves, kind of in the small waves, is Wayne, a surfer they called Rabbit. And he sees him, he's like, and Bob still, despite being mature, he still talks just like a surfer. And he's like, Rabbit, dude, you're a legend. Like, come on, surf over here. The waves are righteous, you know. We'd be stoked, whatever, you know, the surfer would say. And Rabbit says to him, he goes, well, that's kind of you, mate, but I want to surf over here with the kids. It's where I get my energy. And Bob says, I remember to go and surf with the amateurs. And I literally, on days where I'm lacking that kind of vibrancy, I go down, I grab my board, I go to the beach, and I surf. Not with the Hurley-sponsored surfers, the professionals. I surf with the kids. Or when the waves aren't great or I don't have time to grab my board, I just walk down the hall and I find the rookies inside of my company. And I just go hang out with them and let their hopefulness, their fearlessness, renew that sense in me. Francois Truffaut, a French film director, who every time he produced a film, he would go back to the same bookstore where he bought his very first book on how to direct a film, and he would reread it to remember what it was like to make a film when he had no idea how to do it. And he did it with every film. He directed 25 films before he died in his 50s. C.K. Prahalad, this phenomenal professor who every semester tossed out his teaching notes. A tenured professor who every semester put in the rubbish bin his most valuable asset. He told his wife, and she retold this at his memorial just a few years back. He was a dear mentor of mine. He said to his wife, I feel like my students deserve my best thinking every semester. You know, tossing out his templates, his tools, the agendas, the things that we come to rely on. Or an internet CEO who said, you know, when I get stuck, I go for a long walk and I walk in a single direction. I don't allow myself to turn back until I've had a legitimately new idea. And of course, some of these walks have been really, really long. And he said, but when I'm really stuck, I go into my closet and I strip down and just think about my business and my company. And of course, I mean, I don't recommend anyone do this, or certainly don't do it and say, I told you to do this. But I think it's symbolic of shedding beliefs, assumptions, the things that tend to cloud our thinking, and sort of stripping that back to a core or new set of beliefs. You know, I think I'd rather take questions than share with you that. You know, what I think my challenge to you is what could you do that would help you renew this rookie way of thinking and this rookie way of working? And if you're in a leadership role, how could you help everyone on your team kind of pivot from their place of expertise and point that expertise toward a new problem to keep people out of their comfort zone? We asked about 1,000 people to tell us how challenged they were in their jobs and how satisfied they were in their jobs. And what we found was this near perfect linear relationship between challenge and satisfaction, meaning as challenge levels go up, job satisfaction goes up. And when challenge levels in our work go down, we're less satisfied. You know, if you want to increase satisfaction inside your department, feed people a steady diet of challenge. We ask people how long it takes them to wrestle down one challenge, and then how long after that are they ready for a new challenge. They said 3 months to wrestle down a challenge. When are we ready for a new one? Essentially, the data said the next day. It's not that they're ready for a new job. People did say they begin to feel stale in their role after about 24 months, but they're ready for a new challenge. Let me share with you, there's a number of things that you might try and do. We could talk about this with questions. You might ask the naive questions. Maybe you borrow a job. Maybe you swap jobs with someone for just a day. Maybe you disqualify yourself. You go out into that liminal space where you're on the outer edge of your qualifications and sign up to do something that you don't know how to do. Maybe something that scares you. Maybe you staple yourself to a problem, one that's bigger than just your job, one that drags you outside of your job, outside of your division, outside of your swim lanes. And you just let that problem drag you underwater until you go out into a new space. You'll find that you'll be renewed, and you'll probably do something pretty amazing inside of the organization. Maybe like CK, you throw away your notes. We've got a quiz out there that can help you figure out which of these experiences might be perfect for you. We've got about 20 different experiments based on where you are. Are you in that learning zone? Are you a little burnt out? Are you perhaps beyond the red line, revving a little bit too high, maybe too far into that rookie space? Let me leave with this before we go to questions. This is Mia. Mia is a 4th grade girl. She is at the top of the 40-meter ski jump, attempting to do this for the very first time. I love this video because it reflects for me the challenge of stepping into this rookie zone, outside of our comfort area, doing something important and hard for the first time. But it also shows the promise that we tend to be at our best in this space, and we tend to find our greatest joy. This is Mia.
I'll be fine.
Have fun.
I'll do it. Well, here goes something, I guess. Oh, okay, you can do this. I'm gonna jump.
You got it.
Whoa, my ski's slipping off.
Just remember, never snowplow, okay?
No snow plows.
Just keep it straight and you'll be fine.
Okay.
You can do on the 20.
Straight. Do you go faster on the in run?
Little bit.
A little bit?
Yeah.
Is it any steeper, do you think? Not much?
Same steepness, it's just longer.
Well, just longer. Just longer. Just a bigger 20, that's all.
Yep. Have
It's a
fun.
bigger 20. Go ahead. You got this. I got it.
It's fine. You'll be fine.
Okay. Here.
The longer you wait, you'll be more scared.
I go. Just the suspense at the top at the first time freaks you out. That's the only thing. It's so fun. Huh? 60 seems like nothing now. Whoa!
You gotta love Zia. And I think perhaps maybe the most interesting thing said on that is the person you can't really see at all is her friend. Who says the longer you wait, the harder it is. And, I think what I've learned in this research is that it isn't too late to be a rookie. It's where we tend to do our best work. It's where we tend to experience our greatest joy. But if we wait too long, it gets really hard to step out into this place of not knowing when your whole career and strength is built on knowing. But the most valuable professionals will be those who remain perpetual rookies. The most valuable leaders are those that don't just give people kind of a pat on the back. They give people a pat on the back and then a push out into this liminal space. And the most valuable companies are those that, despite their size, years of experience, can continue to build a culture of innovation and continue to operate with the hunger, the drive, and the will of a challenger. They maintain their rookie smarts. What thoughts do you have? And I would love, feel free to ask a question. I think the greatest compliment is a hard question. Ask a question, disagree, make an observation, please.
What do you think about companies that encourage rotations after like 2 years? Some people say it's great, other people that say losing your people is terrible.
Yeah, I think companies that encourage rotations are starting to build the talent management practices that you need for a rookie culture. Vanguard is a really interesting company. They rotate their executives between very, very diverse functions. And there's a number of companies that do this. You don't need to give people a new job. I think a new job is the best way to truly disqualify yourself. But you can continue to feed people challenge, and you continue to get that in your own job as long as you're willing to take on challenges outside of your space. One of my favorite things is the one-day job swap. Because it's sometimes hard to leave your job, you don't want to leave your job, but swapping for one day. Amy, one off here, and then we're going to go right here.
So question is, so my enthusiasm or rookie smarts can show up during meetings with senior people I haven't met with previously, and they interpret me as being too junior for a new initiative.
Too junior for a new initiative. What if you're like all about rookie smarts, you really believe this, you really believe you do your best work, but senior management doesn't see it that way? And my experience with careers and senior management is that people can usually take one leap of faith at a time. And if you want to do something outside of your area of expertise, I'd try to isolate it down to one variable, one thing that you haven't done. And the best way to give someone confidence to give you that kind of role is to show a track record of success in rookie assignments. I think if you can draw a trend line for senior management of things that you learned to do that you didn't know how to do, I think you'll be given those kind of opportunities. When I was 24 and a half, maybe bordering on 25, and they asked me to build the university for Oracle, there was a reason why I got asked to do that, because they said, hey, Liz, we want you to teach, I think I was teaching like PL SQL and some of Oracle's programming languages to the programmers, to people like yourself, people with advanced degrees in computer science. And I had a little bit, I'd taken a couple programming classes in college. I made the mistake of putting on my resume that I had worked at the computer lab at the business school. It was actually helping people kind of move the floppy drives in and out and troubleshoot DOS and things. And they said, okay, great, you're teaching programming. And I said, you know what? Everyone else learned to do that at some point. I'll learn to do it too. And I had built this track record of being able to sort of wrestle down things. I think if you can show senior management that you can do a couple of those, they're willing to take a bet on you on a big one. But you've got to show that track record. Okay, right here.
Super interesting talk. Thank you very much, Liz.
Thank you.
I'm curious to hear a little bit more about the research, in particular the research on the personas that have these traits of being curious and humble and continuous learners. How did you go about finding them, or when you found them, what did you do?
Well, the part of the research where we looked at those 400 pieces of work, that was done with highly structured analysis with, behavioral surveys and quantitative. The profile of the perpetual rookie was sort of emerged very subjectively. As, we encountered these rookies and I saw a track record of them, I just kept track of the traits that they displayed. And that's what I saw across them.
You talked about projects like campus redesigns, and there were some people done by experienced people and others by not so experienced. Can you talk a little bit more about what you learned?
Yeah, what we found is that there were top performing rookies and veterans, but they had very, very different ways of going about it. If you kind of looked at the way we segmented the data, it was kind of, here's how people without experience, we'll call it rookies, we'll call it veterans, and we looked at those who performed at the top and those who failed, were lower performers. And what we found is that this profile looks very, very different between those. This is what I came to kind of call rookie smarts, operating unencumbered in this hunter-gatherer mode. But this profile down here, when you look at the approaches used by those who performed at low levels, it's almost completely shared. It's similar. And actually, if I had to pick a word, is that both operated from a place of hubris, which made sense over here, that, in our experience, we can operate from hubris. But don't you know people who are rookies who operate from a place of hubris? Yeah, they're called teenagers. For those of you who have teenagers, know that you can actually be young and inexperienced and arrogant, thinking you've got it figured out. Well, we also find those kinds of rookies in the professional setting. Another thing that we found in the research is that these top performing rookies, they do tend to outperform the veterans in the area of knowledge work. We found it's absolutely not the case when it comes to work that involves physical mastery. And that's also where you'll see the research, for those of you who are familiar with the 10,000 hour rule. I kind of double clicked on that a few times, and you look at that research, it was done with violinists, athletes, surgeons. In the world where physical mastery is critical for success, you don't really want a rookie. I mean, you don't want a rookie surgeon. No one here really wants a first-time dentist. Probably don't want a first-time, dive master or, sky jump tandem partner. There are certain things where it takes years of experience to get the mastery. Did that answer the question? Any other questions? Here.
So I was trying to relate this to something more natural, something like driving a bike or a new car driver on a complex car path. But as I was thinking that you mentioned, physical is different from mental work. So would you say driving the car on a more complex path, getting used to it and being more reactive to accidents, things like that is probably...
That's right. I think these ideas really apply in the realm of knowledge work, and in the physical work, we do need that kind of practice, and we need deliberate practice. Obviously, you all work in the realm of knowledge work, but even industries that aren't necessarily knowledge industries, more and more, every company is becoming a software company, are they not? Every company is having to operate on a platform of technology. And so we're finding similar properties. Any other comments? Amy, anything from the live stream?
Actually, this is from me. Devil's advocates. I mean, there's the person in the room who's thinking of things in a novel way, which is towards being a rookie. But I think there's also that sort of going beyond that to maybe asking the question everybody knows, or there's the, like, where do you put that?
Yeah, it depends on sort of the role that the devil's advocate plays. One of the things that we do in our rookie space is we tend to ask naive questions, and it comes naturally. And naive questions are very different than stupid questions, and they're different than the sort of devil's advocate that comes from a place of hubris, where you're kind of just being an ass, to just call it what it is. The naive questions are questions that are simple and unaffected. They're intelligent questions, and they're there to get to the core of something, to simplify, to clarify. They're very different than stupid questions or antagonizing questions, which are really just annoying. And I would encourage you to go into meetings and ask the naive questions, the kind of the beautiful questions that when you ask them, everyone goes, thank you, I've been wondering that for months. Why are we doing it? Who really is going to value from this? What would happen if we just didn't build this feature at all? And someone is willing to ask that question. What else? Right here?
So, like the video you showed, I mean, when she launched, she was self-propelled by gravity, and it took her to the end. But when you get into these spaces, you're going to get told you're crazy and, you're stupid, and there's this part about not just starting it, but sustaining these projects. And a lot of it has to do with just how you view it. Or at least for me, it's easy to get sidetracked by listening to others that are negating what I'm trying to do. Are there patterns that you found about how people sustain themselves through these projects to have results?
Yeah, I think there's the way of sort of mindfully and with discipline willing your way through these. But I think the most powerful way is just removing the option to go back. It's the proverbial burn the boats. Or it's having a leader who's willing to let you be a little uncomfortable. You know what, I brought my rubber band here in case this kind of issue came up. Would you be willing to play the leader role with me on this? So, okay, tell me your name. Nick. So I'm going to have you play the role of the challenger, meaning the leader who issues the stretch challenge. I will be the challenged. I'll be the rookie in this space. And I should tell you that this is not a magical rubber band. So I got this at Staples. Right. Okay, so here's what I'm going to have you do. I'm going to have you, Nick, stretch this as tight as you possibly can without breaking it, and then hold it there. Okay, tight as you can without breaking it, and then hold it there.
You're not going to let it go on me?
No.
That's getting pretty close.
Okay, we're not there. And for those of you in leadership roles, I just want you to watch Nick and what he does. As tight as you can without breaking it. And then hold it there. As tight as you can.
Probably going to get it to the point where it snaps.
You're not there.
You keep giving in a little bit. I don't know, pull more.
I want you to pull it to it's as tight as you can before it breaks.
All right, that's pretty good right there.
Okay, now if Nick doesn't give in, okay, first of all, how am I feeling at this time? Any guesses? How's Nick feeling? A little nervous, a little concerned. It's that sort of fear. I'm scared, I'm anxious. This is us kind of being asked to do something hard that we don't know how we're doing. And I know that you're there when I'm like on my, when I'm off balance. How long can I stay like this?
A little bit, but not too long.
Yeah, not too long. I'm losing blood in my fingers. I'm kind of wobbling. My legs are starting to shake. What are my options at this point? If Nick doesn't give in, what are my options?
Well, you can just walk forward and let go of the band.
Yeah, well, I can let go of the band, right? And it's what some people do. When you give them the challenge, they kind of let go, but they still show up to your meetings, don't they? You just don't realize that they've let go. There's just no tension. My other option is I walk forward and I relieve that tension. This is me figuring out the new thing, mastering it, learning, delivering, performing. I get some blood in my fingers. My leader says to me,
All right, you gonna pull anything?
my leader says to me,
Are you okay?
no, my leader says to me, someone help him out, help Nick out. My leader says to me,
Good job.
thank you.
Good job.
Yeah, thanks, because it feels good to have someone recognize that I just did something hard. Now, what does he get to do as the leader, as the challenger? Again, back to that point. Again, I want you to find that point of tension where it feels like it's going to break, but it doesn't. Okay, see how much faster he's finding it this time? Okay, good. And more confidence. See, it's that building a track record of I can do hard things. I'm now off balance again. I'm like in that kind of rookie zone. Can't stay here very long. It's uncomfortable. We hate this part of tension. Like Zia, we hate being up there on the top of the hill. Like she goes because it's just so miserable to be there. It's like worse than actually doing the jump. We figure it out, and you say to me,
good job.
Thank you. And then he gets to do it again, right? But where do we go, Nick, thank you.
You're welcome.
Where do we go wrong? And I want to go back to Nick's original question, which is, like, once you're out in this zone, like, how do you persist through this? Where do we tend to go wrong as leaders? Or where do your leaders go wrong with the rubber band, so to speak? Too fast, too big. It's this challenge with bravado because it just sounds good. And either people let go because they're like, that's ridiculous. They still come to your meetings. No tension. Or you've broken them. And if you've broken someone, you know what that's like. I've broken people before by asking them to do something that they were not at all equipped to do. Kind of an irresponsible challenge. Where else do we go wrong? One is we pull too hard, too much.
You show up with the wrong rubber band, maybe. It's really not the challenge you're supposed to engage with. Maybe there's better challenges out there.
Yeah, it's not the right challenge. Where else do we go wrong? And not enough tension. It's like, if I said, here, I've got something hard for you to do. When there's no stretch and there's no tension and you've just given something, what are you essentially saying to them?
You don't value or trust you.
I don't trust you, I don't value you, I don't think you're capable of anything hard. If someone can do what you're asking them to do in their sleep, you might think, oh, let me give it to Ram, he can do it in his sleep. Well, we shouldn't be too surprised when the organization's sleepy, right? When you can do your work in your sleep, what does work feel like? Okay, where else? Okay, we could pull too big. We can, give things that aren't real. That's like keeping someone in their comfort zone, in their zone of expertise. Where else do we tend to go wrong? Let's say it's a big challenge. It's the right challenge. And if it's the right challenge, the person should be wobbling. Like I know that band is pulled right when I am on my toes, I'm off balance, I'm wobbling, and it kind of hurts to sort of stay vertical. And what often do well-intended leaders do?
Come in and help out.
They come in and help out. They're like, oh, Liz, I can see that you're struggling. And Nick might go, here, let me relieve just a little bit of that tension. But if he were to do this, what has he essentially said to me?
Can't do it.
You can't do it. You know, and as we're saying, you don't have the expertise, I have it. It's what keeps us out of this discomfort zone is when people make us comfortable. And, you know, based on the research I've done for my book, Multipliers, as well as the research I've done for Rookie Smarts, is I absolutely believe that the very best leaders are people who have become comfortable letting other people be uncomfortable. You know, they ask people to do hard, uncomfortable things to, like, this step, and then they just don't ease up. It's almost like, you know, you might want to go back and watch that Zia on the ski jump and listen to her coach, who doesn't say, well, why don't we try it tomorrow? Or, you know what, I'll go first. Do you want me to show you again? Hey, let's go back and do a run on the 20. He just kind of stands there next to her and lets her work it out until she's ready to do it. And I think the best leaders do create this kind of tension, and then they hold it there to where the person has no choice but to move forward, to climb up that learning curve. Final observations or comments?
Have you done research in the context of teams? A lot of us work not alone, but with groups of folks, and curious if that's something that you tackled. Like Rookie Smarts alone, I can completely get that concept, but it becomes more complex when you work with 3 or 4 other people that may not be in the same wavelength.
Yeah, and I think the most powerful combination, I think there's a couple places where the ideas in the research in the book could be misconstrued. One is that this is about young people being capable, and it's really not. Rookie Smarts is a state of mind, and it's one available to us at all ages and at all experience levels. I think the other way it could be misconstrued is that, well, we need everyone sort of in that Rookie Smart space. And what we've seen as the most powerful combinations are when you can bring together the hard-won wisdom and experience on a team and infuse in their Rookie Smarts, and you get really powerful combinations. The book has got, in the last chapter, a section on how you create some of these teams. One thing I will say, I found it was interesting that the most powerful combination is not a 50-50 blend. Because you can imagine what happens when you get kind of half Rookie Smarts, half veteran savvy. What do you end up getting? It's like a negative times a positive. It's like, it kind of washes out that rookie dynamic. We find that you get your greatest value when you either have just an infusion of one rookie on a team, or a lot of rookies with maybe 1 or 2 experienced people. Thoughts, ideas, questions? Thank you for joining me. Thank you for having a conversation with me. Not too late to be a rookie, so thank you.
There are 10